Hello everyone, it's Don back with the next progress report on the Corsair. So today's Sunday. Yesterday, Saturday, I ended up going to Meadville's fly-in, the one I was at last year with this plane when it was all together down at the airport. So I didn't get to do anything on this yesterday. After the fly-in, I had to go look at my friend's car. Turns out he's got a bad alternator, so he needs to replace that. And then I came home and had to deal with my lawnmower. The wife was out mowing with it the other day and broke the mower deck belt, so I had to find a belt, tear that all apart, fix that. So I didn't get anything done yesterday on the airplane. So after the last video, I'd mentioned I was waiting on my ignition coils. So I did get the coils. They actually showed up the very next day. These are Bosch coils for Mercedes-Benz. So you've got a 3-wire hookup. You got 2 triggers, and the center one is 12-volt power. And then you have 2 outputs here. And if you can see inside there, these have brass pins that come up in the center. And they're not a shell cup on the outside to where a standard spark plug lead like this will attach. That lead will not plug into that coil. It'll plug in there, but it won't touch anything because the pin goes right through the center. So it took me hours, but I finally found the connectors, the right connectors to fit on the ends of these wires. So these, I've got 8 of them coming. I ordered 2 packs of 4. They were like $2.50 for 4 pieces, but $5 shipping. So, and upon researching those, it also said that Chevy LS coils use the same style of pins. There you can see the pins. The brass is just strictly on the inside. The pins in the middle, so nothing around the outside will touch a stock boot. But come to find out, the LS Chevy motors that have coil packs like this that are near plug, uses a short plug wire to go to the plugs. They use the same connectors, but I couldn't find them either. I actually originally found the connectors over in Europe, and and that got me to search for an actual name for them. They were like a 4MT or something like that they call them. But I found them on eBay, so I got those coming out of Texas. The last week's video I forgot to mention, I did mount the transistor pack, which drives the coils. You got a 5-pinner coming in. The center pin is a ground pin, and the other 2 lefts are the left cylinder head 1 and 3. And the 2 right pins are cylinders 2 and 4. And then the output's just 4-pin out. You got 2 signals to the left side, 2 signals to the right side, which are now all hooked up. So my initial idea is these coils are going to be mounted pretty much like this. I'm going to see if I can't use this. This is a 1/4-inch aircraft bolt, but it won't fit inside here. I need to go get some like Allen wrench head socket cap screws in a metric size. But that's essentially how they're going to work. So the front terminal coming out goes to the front cylinder, and the back cylinder, that's back cylinder. That's how I have them wired to trigger. These are 2 separate coils. You can see there's a coil here and a coil here, and 2 triggers, and they're independent of each other. So one triggers one triggers the other. They're not a wasted spark. So all the wires are just preliminarily run through here. They'll all get tied in with everything else. I still have to plug this. I got to do something, pull that out, plug it somehow. But that's a big vacuum vent leak for the block. So that's what I've been up to today. I've got the Canon plug, the big bulkhead plug, all hooked up and wired. I'm going to put all the pins back in the connectors before it's done. But that's all hooked in and plugged in, so, and then it's all tied into the computer. I've got everything wired in. I've got the fuel pump wired in, so when you turn the power on, the pump runs. Let me give you a quick demonstration of that real quick. This powers up. This is the fuel pump. See, I shouldn't be doing that though. It shouldn't come on until I turn on the ignition switch. It should only run for like 4 seconds. Yeah, it's supposed to do that. Then shut off. But for some reason, I think this computer when you turn this switch on, it powers the computer, and the computer completes the ground. So when the computer's not on, apparently it's supplying a ground. But that pump sounds really loud. But anyway, been out here tinkering with it, trying to get this thing to work with those coils and spark. Now when this thing's working, these are the 4 LEDs. So when the ignition is triggered, the LED will correspond to cylinder, well, it's trigger 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it'd be cylinder 1, 3, 2, 4. So 1 and 4 are the same. And then these LEDs back here are strictly for the fuel injectors. Well, this is a VR conditioner because I'm using the crank signal. They're variable reluctance triggers for the cam and crank. And this is a little conditioner board that changes it from an AC sine wave signal to a DC output, so the CPU can recognize it and then trigger those. But if I turn it on and hit the crank, you'll see the sensors. There's 2 little LEDs on here, one yellow and one green. So when I crank it, it's getting cam and crank. But I'm not getting any outputs out of it. And I went through the program. I can't find anything that's not wired properly or set up right. So I've been chasing that for a couple hours now. I'm going to have to get on the Speeduino forum and post a comment and see if there's something I'm missing. But I've got all the triggers set up correctly. This is a 6 signal, 7 signals, or 7 signals for the cam, 6 teeth on the crank sensor, and as you can see, they're physically triggering. They're working. Now I did come out and hook up my laptop to it. It just plugs into the USB port here on the bottom of the actual Arduino. So you hook into this little guy here, hook it to the laptop, and then the dash that comes up on that, when I'm cranking, I don't see my tack actually triggering. The tack in here is not triggering. Here, RPM. It's not moving. It kind of flickered and stopped. But on the Speeduino, because it is getting a crank and cam signal, it was running like 400 RPM on the gauges on the laptop. So it was showing that the triggers are sensing correctly and that it was reading RPM. But the RPM is generally picked up, I believe, through the crank sensor. So it is getting a good signal, but for some reason I'm not getting any triggers on the output. So first I thought there is also a little jumper on the board that dictates if your ignition system needs a 5-volt input or a 12-volt input. And I had it set for 12 volts because that's what I figured it was. Well, it turns out that little module here, AEM, I found sells one like this, and it says it only uses a 5-volt trigger. But when I look up the Bosch, this is not a Bosch, but when I look up the Bosch one, it says it needs a 6 to 12 volt trigger. So I took this in the house, wired up a coil, did everything, powered up 12 volts, and I triggered the pin with a 12 volt trigger, and the spark plug sparks every time too. And I checked all 4 channels, so there's nothing wrong with this. So, and right now it's only on a 5-volt jumper for 5-volt trigger. Let me jump it over to 12 volt again, but I don't think it's going to change. I checked all the wiring to make sure nothing was cross connected from soldering. Everything's clean, everything's free. There's no 2 wires shorted together anywhere. Let me just do a quick check with this. I haven't tried it since I've been fiddling around, but I don't expect it to work. Originally, the software was programmed to run 4 revolutions before it would trigger the ignition or injectors. So now the battery sounds like it's getting a little low from trying to. I'm trying not to run it as much as I can because there's no oil in here. That's why the plugs are out, so there's no load on it. There's going to be residual oil still on the stuff because even when this thing pans was open, it would drip, drip, drip. But I don't think I'm going to be hurting anything just from the cranking. So, but that's kind of where I'm at. I think that's all I got to fiddle with today was just this ignition. It's receiving good signals, but it's just not outputting. So I'm not sure what's going on there. I doubt it's damaged anything on here. I'm not sure. There are 4 transistors here. You got these 2 and these 2, and I'm not sure what they drive. If they drive coils, ignition coils, or if they drive the injectors. They probably drive injectors, because the injectors, even though they're high impedance, low current, it probably still needs drivers, transistors for that. So I got to look up the part number off of these, see what they are, but there's no schematic for this board, so I can trace it and find out what is feeding what. Which one of these chips, what are all these chips doing? I haven't got a clue. The heart of this, the brain of the system is this Arduino board. So my neighbor down the road actually has a couple, so I might be able to grab one of his and throw it in there and see if it isn't my Arduino. But everything else seems to be working. It's got a, like I said, it's got a good RPM signal. It was jumping right up to 400. The dashboard was showing good. So I'm not sure what's going on yet. Hopefully I'll get that sorted out. But today it's been, you know, shy of 90 degrees, hot and humid, and it's not terrible in here, but it isn't great. If I start working up a little hard, then I'll start sweating. So I haven't got to try and do that. But as far as the fuel pump's wired. The master switch is wired to the positive bus bar inside. So when the master switch is turned on, you turn on the fuel pump switch, it grounds it, but the board must be pulling that trigger for the fuel pump to ground, so it turns on when it shouldn't. So I may take the power wire off of the computer, because that's hooked to the ignition switch. When I turn the ignition switch on, it powers the ECU, and then with that I can probably run that trigger from this to the fuel pump relay. I still want to run it through the switch so I can physically turn it off. So if I have to come out here and bump and crank the engine around, I don't want the fuel pump turning on. I want to be able to turn the pump on. The computer will physically turn it on when you start cranking, but I don't want it to turn on like it's doing right now. If I leave it off, I mean, it seems to work. If I turn the computer on and then flip the switch on, it'll probably work normally, but for some reason this is going to ground when there's no power, and this only gets powered when you turn on the key for the engine. It's not powered to the airplane's master switch. So, alright, I think I'm just going to keep this one short. I'll keep plugging away at it. Meanwhile, I got to go find some screws long enough to bolt this right to here. I was going to make some aluminum brackets, but I'm going to see if I can't just mount them right here for right now and see how they hold up. But I'll use some socket head cap screws, but I just got to find the metric size equivalent. It looks like it's probably, might be a 6 mil. I've got a little cheater board here. 6. Yeah, it's a 6 by 1.0. Good. And it's going to take 1.0 thread pitch. It's going to take 2 different lengths, because this one is going to be a little deeper to get to this stud boss, and I don't want it touching anything. I'll make a spacer to put in there, and then the bolt's got to recess down into the bottom of these things. There's basically that's the bottom, and the thickness of that steel in here, that's the silver stuff, that's how thick the head of the bolt's got to be. So if I do it, the bolt's got to be like this, and then the length I need to come out here to clear the backs of these coils so they're not going to chafe through into the wiring. But these heads won't, the bolts won't fit in there. The original bolts used Torx bits, so the head's got to fit in there. So I think that's going to do her. I'm going to go ahead and end this thing. We're at 14 minutes now, so not much to report, but the wiring is done, other than that fuel pump being acting up not right. So everything else is finished. Now I may have to run an air temp and a engine coolant temp sensor to that as well, because the timing tables in there can be affected by either the high air temps or high coolant temps. So it'd be nice to have the coolant temp, which means I'd have to add another sensor in here somewhere for the computer. The air temp sensor can go in the intake, or it can just literally go in here. into the air filter. It doesn't have to be anywhere special. Just need to see what the air temp is. But basically we want the air temp that's going into the engine. Because on the dash, I can't turn them off in the software to ignore them. So, and they read like 410 degrees Celsius. They're pegged because there are no gauges hooked to it. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop it here now and go inside and do some more research. I'm going to check the trigger mechanism on this for the timing to make sure that when it starts on 10 degrees initial. And then once it fires up, then it automatically jumps up to 20 and then goes from there. So, alright, well, I'm going to go, and appreciate everybody taking time again to watch my videos. Feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns, and I will answer them accordingly. Appreciate the ones that people are leaving now, and I'll try and get some of this sorted out. I still got to get that rudder cables hooked up to the tail wheel and that, and it's just a matter of putting them in. But for now, I will try and get another video up Tuesday if I can get anything else done. So if I can at least get this figured out or get in the forums and see what people think. So, alright everyone, I'm going to go, and I will catch you again hopefully Tuesday evening. So for now, this is Dan O'Donnell out.